the two convents, the two britot, the two covenants. Why did I get this down? The two covenants that Abraham got from Hashem. And I'm asking why two covenants and what do they mean? Okay, so I'm going to start. The first one is chapter 15, Brit Ben Abtarim. The second one is Brit Milah, which is the circumcision. And I'll start with the second one because you'll see why. The second one starts with an amazing word which is called Ani El Shaddai. By the way, it only appears 4 times in the whole Torah. Ani El Shaddai, which means I'm the God which is presenting you, which is giving you all what you need. But it's only usually written about Brit Milah, about circumcision. It was given to Abraham. Abraham gives it to Yitzchak. Yitzchak gives it to Yaakov, and Yaakov gives it to one son. Guess which son? Joseph. Only to Joseph. And those are the 4 times that it's written. And later it's written another 1 time in the Parashat Va'era, and we'll see it soon. Anyhow, it's written here, Hashem is giving him a covenant in the name of Ani El Shaddai, and later he calls himself Elokim, Elokim, Elokim. Elokim, as you know, is always nature. And it's a natural thing that every people get at least a small piece of land. I said a small piece of land, and that's the land which is here. If I look at the map, and I'm making the map a tiny bit smaller, so you can see the map. Wow, can you see the map a tiny bit smaller? Okay, this is a map of Eretz Israel, and the small part of Eretz Israel is Eretz Canaan. Always in the Tanakh, when it's written Eretz Canaan, it means the slight part of Eretz Israel. What we are living today, it doesn't even get to Eilat. It doesn't even get to Eilat. It gets to Beersheba a tiny bit more southwards, which means the essence of Eretz Israel, it's the land where Am Yisrael are going to capture when they come into with Yoshua into Eretz Israel. That's a small land. So what I say here, this is the blue, and I'm looking at the arrow, and the arrow is talking about, I'm the God. Let me make the text a tiny bit bigger. I'm the God, El Shaddai, Elokim, and I said the God of nature, and it's natural that every people should accept a piece of land. I won't go to the whole text of the Brit Milah. We'll see it soon, afterwards in a different perspective. And here it's written Eretz Canaan. Can you see the word in blue, Eretz Canaan? Le'achuzat olam. It'll be forever for you. Va'iti lahem le'elohim. You'll have this land and I'll be your God forever. And it's written also the word megurecha, where you're going to live. And of course, Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, and later Am Yisrael, when they came into Eretz Israel, that's the place where Jews live. Okay, Jews are scattered all over the world, but that's the time when they were given the land when they came out of Egypt. That's one piece of land. The second piece of land is a much larger piece of land, and that's the yellow one. And if I look at the big map, the small map I'm enlarging in, can you see the small Eretz Israel? But there's a much larger margin. And that margin is, let me try to lift it up a tiny bit. Okay, I'll make it a tiny bit smaller so you can see the whole map. And if you can see the whole map, just 1 second. The play around here is a tiny bit difficult. And this map, okay, can you see this map? Is actually from Egypt, from Nahar Mitzrayim. I wrote here at the bottom, Nahar Mitzrayim, until the Prat. The Prat is the
Euphrates.
The Euphrates. Okay. Euphrates. It doesn't mean.
Do you understand? You understand Nahar Mitzrayim is the Nile? Hanilus?
Okay, you're right. Sometimes it's written Nahar Mitzrayim, and sometimes it's written Nachal Mitzrayim. When it's written Nachal Mitzrayim, it's El Arish. When it's written Nahar Mitzrayim, it's until the Suez Canal and perhaps until the Nile itself. We'll soon see that it depends. In some places it's written Nachal Mitzrayim, which means El Arish, and you asked that past time. and that's the
Yeah.
smaller part. And then Nahar Mitzrayim is much further away. It depends how much we captured or not. Okay, from the 6-day war, we did capture the whole, and we got to Nahar Mitzrayim because we captured the whole Sinai. But the top here on the Euphrates, it means the bend of the Euphrates, and really it's the south part of Turkey. By the way, when was this captured? All captured? It was captured by Abraham. First of all, by Abraham when he captured the 4 kings, but he couldn't keep it. He couldn't keep it. When was it captured again? When you say, Elaine? David and Shlomo. The time of David and Shlomo. After Shlomo died, everything collapsed. You're perfectly right. And that's called, let's look at the text now, and we'll see the other covenant. The other covenant is Brit Ben Abtarim, between the pieces, and then Hashem is called Ani Hashem. He's not called Elokim. He's also not called Ani El Shaddai. It's already, let's say, the name of God, which is more miraculous. It's already, it's not the nature. It means personally, I'm giving you a present. Am Yisrael knows, only Am Yisrael knows Ani Hashem. The Yud Kei Vav Kei is known only to Am Yisrael. So, okay, today everybody knows that, but we actually know that Am Yisrael is, Hashem calls him Israel, and we call him Hashem. Ani Hashem, by the way, the verse here is exactly a copy later of another verse that all of you know in the 10 Commandments. Ani Hashem asher hotzeticha me'ur kasdim. What does it remind you? I'm the God that took you out from...
He's frozen.
I'm the God that took you out of Egypt. Exactly. Okay? The internet is with you. You can see still?
Yeah.
It wrote to me that it stopped a minute. Okay. So this is exactly the copy of the 10 Commandments, or the other way around. The 10 Commandments copied from here, but afterwards it's written the word haaretz, and it's always written haaretz. Can you see at the bottom haaretz? And by the way, at the bottom, Elaine, it's written haaretz azot minahar Mitzrayim. Later, in Parashat in Mas'eh, it will be written from Nachal Mitzrayim. Okay, when it's written there, it's written in Nachal Mitzrayim. It depends how much Am Yisrael has captured. So there were times that we captured until El Arish. There were times that we captured the whole Sinai desert. So here it's written Nahar Mitzrayim, which definitely means the big river. It's not a small stream, and we're talking about until Nahar Prat. And here, how's God called? Again, I said Hashem, and here it's written the word Lerishta, which means you will inherit, but it's not automatically. It's automatically after you captured, you'll inherit, but it won't always happen. It's not like in the first covenant, which is written La'achuzah, which means it'll always belong to you. But this part won't always belong to you. It's not permanent, and we know that it only happened twice in the whole history. It happened in the time of David, and it happened again in the time of Yoshiyahu HaMelech. I won't go into it, but just before the destruction of the temple, something like 20, 30 years before the destruction of the temple, when Yoshiyahu was the king, the land was again very large. But those are the only twice that we had the big land, but this is another covenant, which means it's a covenant which is more as a present. And this is in the yellow. I drew here the second map. So that's one thing that I wanted to show you, that the two covenants are two different periods, and it's more as a present. The first covenant of Brit Milah is actually permanent and always will be ours. So that's one thing that I wanted to show you. By the way, there's also a mingle between the two covenants. I'm going to show you where. Just 1 second. Let me just go into a minute. Just 1 second. No, it's not this. Just 1 second. Where is it? I'm just looking where it is. Found it. Okay. I said another one time in Parashat Va'era in Exodus will be written these the word El Shaddai. Can you see the page now? Parashat Va'era.
Yeah.
Okay. This is the first time that Hashem is speaking to Am Yisrael through Moshe in Egypt. Okay, it's the second parashat, second portion that we read in Shmot. After Exodus, we read Va'era, and it's written in chapter 6, Vaydaber Elohim el Moshe, Vayomer elav Ani Hashem. By the way, Ani Hashem will appear here 4 times, Ani Hashem, Ani Hashem, Ani Hashem. But the first half is different from the second half. Can you see here on the right, on the left, sorry, on the left, there's all kinds of phrases that I bolded, and I didn't take the Tanakh, the Torah takes all kinds of words, and these words are written actually in the second covenant of Brit Milah. For instance, V'apimotit Briti, okay, a covenant. Which covenant? Eretz Knan, Eretz Megurehem. You remember this phrase, Eretz Knan, Eretz Megurehem? That's exactly what's written in Brit Milah. When Abraham got the circumcision, so here the first half of this speech of Hashem is talking about Brit Milah. But in the same speech, Hashem is also saying another Brit. He's mentioning again a Brit. Here in blue, he's mentioning a Brit. And here there's another covenant that he's mentioning. And all in purple is a second covenant. And here it's not written Eretz Knan. What's written here in purple here? Ela Aretz. It's talking about another covenant, the covenant between the pieces, Brit Ben Abtarim. And here it's written Morasha, Yerusha. So all this has appeared, and I bolded also here that actually the first speech that Hashem is talking to Moshe to tell Am Yisrael is, I'm going to keep the 2 covenants. First of all, the covenant of Brit Milah. And can you see here, it's written the words, where's the words? Va'era el Avraham el Yitzchak ve'Yaakov be'el Shaddai. This is the only 4th or 5th time that is written the word El Shaddai. El Shaddai won't be written anymore. It will be written once more, not by Jews, by Bilam. By Bilam, that was a prophet. And also in Sefer Yov, a lot of Sefer Yov, of course. I'm talking about the expert in Tanakh, of course. So you know that in Sefer Yov it's written again and again.
I just looked it up.
Okay, also in Tehillim, a few places in Tehillim, also in Tehillim. Okay, you nearly know it all off by heart. So I'm saying in Tehillim, in Sefer Yov, in Bilam, but those are more philosophical places. But the rest of the places never will be more written El Shaddai. It belongs to the fathers. That's what he says here. Okay, so I wanted to show that the 2 covenants are written in blue and purple. The Torah doesn't color it. The Torah colors it very nicely, but we are blind. So I have to color it to show that the Torah knew exactly what it's writing. So that's what I wanted to show about Parashat Shavua, and I want to go into more details now about Brit Milah. Just 1 second. We're going to more into details, more to Brit Milah. Let me just open the page. And here in Brit Milah, that's the first covenant. Let me see if it's saying. How do I do stop share? Just 1 second. Wow, to play around here with so many pages is difficult. Tell me if you can see here this page. Yeah. You can see Lech-Lcha. We're in Lech-Lcha.
No, yeah.
Yeah, you can see. Okay, let me make it small so you can see what I'm talking about. This page is talking about Brit Milah, and I'm showing you that all the colors that are on the top repeat themselves on the bottom. This whole passage of chapter 17 is talking about exactly copying twice. And again, I'm asking you, why is it copying twice? Red with red, green with green, blue with blue, and light blue with light blue, and so on. Let me make it bigger, and let's see what's going on here. And actually, circumcision is written twice. Why is it written twice? I'm already going to tell you. Can you see in the middle, there's a blue line. And the blue line differentiates between the first half and the second half. So let's see the first half. I wrote on top of the first half, I wrote in light blue, Brit im Avraham v'zar'o. That means the circumcision is together with Abraham and all the descendants of Abraham. So let's see here. It's written at the top in red. Vayi Avraham ben tish'im shana v'teish shanim. Can you imagine making such a surgery at 99? I can't imagine how he did it. And he did it without anesthesia, without getting sleep. I don't know how he did it, but he did it, 99 years old. And here it's written, Ani El Shaddai in brown. I said this is typical for always this kind of a covenant. And here you can see that actually Hashem is changing his name. Because what's the name of Avraham here? Avram. Avram. And then he's telling him in brown, V'lo yikare od shimcha Avram, v'haya shimcha Avraham. That means while you're changing your body, of course, he's not changing his body, but he's making a slight change and he's doing a circumcision. I'm going to change also your name, which means I'm going to change also your personality. You're not going to be a private person of Avram, the father of Ram. You're going to be the father of many nations, Avraham, a lot of nations. So you can see that two changes, also a physically change, and also I would say spiritually and charismatically, you're changing your whole destination. So from Avram to Avraham. And by the way, the whole time is written 3 times, 4 times, Beini uveinecha, between you and me. You are making this change in your body. I'm changing. I'm also going to make a change, and I'm becoming your God. And it means that I'm going to bless you. In orange, ve'arbe otcha bim'od me'od. You are doing such a dangerous thing that you are cutting at 99 years old, such a delicate thing. I'm also going to make you more fruitful and so on. By the way, it's not just by chance that certain part of the body, because it means that you have to keep something. And I'm going to talk about it in the whole book of Genesis. What you have to keep, you have to marry the right women. So what does it mean? It doesn't only mean that at 8 days old, you cut a piece of skin. It means keep the zera, keep the sperm for the right women. It means keep being Jewish. And part of being Jewish is marrying the right women, being with the right women. It doesn't mean you don't have to take, you can also convert women, okay? Jews are not only biological, they can also convert. But it means always to marry Jewish women, okay? So the whole thing, we'll see that this will carry on to Yitzchak, to Yaakov, and by the way, who didn't keep it? The other guys. Which other guys? Ishmael, and who else didn't keep it?
Esav.
Esav. We'll see that Esav didn't deserve the blessings because he married other women. And by the way, we'll see it's all because he didn't keep the sperm, or he didn't keep the zera as proper. And part of the zera is Brit Milah, it's circumcision, but it means also marrying the right women. So all these verses in all kinds of colors is written about Abraham and his continuation. So why all this is written again? Because here there's another person that's going to go through. And I wrote in blue here, Brit im Yitzchak v'zaro. Excuse me, who's Yitzchak? Yitzchak is the son of Abraham. Why is not concluded in Abraham in the first half? Why do you need two parts which are talking about the same people? Here you're talking about Abraham and his descendants. That's all you say, children of descendants? How do you say children? Children and children. Descendants?
Descendant.
Yeah. Descendants. Okay, so is Yitzchak part of the descendants? So you don't need to say it again. Because we are excluding one person. Who we're excluding in the second half? Ishmael. I'll soon prove it that he's trying to exclude, Hashem is trying to exclude Ishmael. That means all the verses, all the phrases that are written in different colors in the first half are repeated in the second half on Yitzchak and his descendants. Now have a look who's changing the name in the second half. The first half in brown, who changed the name? Or who did Hashem change his name? Avraham. Who's changing in the second half? The mother of Yitzchak, Sarai. Lo tikaret shma Sarai ki Sarah. And who will come out? Will come out Yitzchak. Vayta legoim, she will also be blessed. And v'akimoti et briti ito. Who's with ito? We'll soon see that he's especially talking about Yitzchak. In verse number 19, ויאמר אלוהים, אבל שרה אשתך יולדת לך בן וקראת את שמו יצחק. Why Yitzchak? Not Ishmael. He's the carrying on of the Jewish people, not Ishmael, but Yitzchak. You will ask, the Arabs until today do circumcision? Yes, they are part of Abraham's family as like I say, servants. We'll soon talk about at the bottom here. It's written here, right at the bottom, and Kafhei, V'Ishmael bno ben 13 shana b'imolod b'sar orlato, but we'll see that he's part of Miknat Kaspo and Yeledei Beito. I'll see it at the next page. He's part of the family because all the people in Abraham's household have to do it. Also the servants and also the rest of the children, but he's not the important child. Who's the important child? Yitzchak. So here you can see why it's repeated twice. So that's one page that I wanted to show you. I'm going to the next page. Any questions, meantime, you can ask. Okay, the next page is going to go into details more about Yitzchak. Just 1 second. Okay, let me see if I can do it. Can you see the second page?
No.
No, it didn't come up?
Yep,
Yeah.
it's here.
It's here, okay, it takes a bit of time. It came up. This is Amud Bet, exactly the same chapter. And here I bolded who's written in the first half and who's written in the second half. Let's count how many times Abraham is written in the first half. Avraham, Avamon, which means like Avraham. Avraham, you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Actually 8. Why should it be written 8 and not 7? I usually say a typical number is 7. Why?
The 8 days of circumcision.
8 days of circumcision, of course. 8 with 8. It must fit with 8. Actually, circumcision is above nature because nature is to be born with the Brit Milah, without the Brit Milah. But here you're doing something above nature, you're mending the nature, and it's above nature. That's why it's the 8th day, that's why it's 8 times Avraham. Interesting. Who's written in the second half? Again, will be written Avraham. Avraham, how many times? Okay, you can guess how many times will be written Avraham. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But here another person will be written 6 times. I'll soon explain why 6 times. But who's mentioned in the second time, which is not written in the first half? Sarai, Sarai, Sarah, Sarah, Sarah. Why is she written? Because she's the mother of Yitzchak. And of course, Ishmael doesn't have that mother. It's Hagar, but he's not part and parcel. And I wrote here in blue, on the side here, I'll just expand it so you can see it much bigger. What's written here in blue, what I wrote. Brit, the first half is Brit Shel Avraham. He ought. It's a sign, a symbol, and it's by the way, a symbol very similar to the symbol of the rainbow. We'll soon see at the bottom of the page that there's a lot of words written about this symbol of the circumcision, very similar to the circumcision of the covenant with Noach. We'll soon see that's also a symbol. The keshet is also a symbol. Ota brit im anashim kula. Okay, at the bottom, at the second half, brit shel Yitzchak. The circumcision is actually a covenant with Yitzchak, and he's differentiated from Ishmael. So have a look that many things are written up at parallel, the light blue, V'akimoti et briti beini uveinecha, but also with Yitzchak, V'akimoti et briti ito, especially with him. What does it mean with him and not with Ishmael? Lebrit olam, it's even forever. Where's written Brit olam? I'm going at the bottom, and by the way, I'll make it a tiny bit smaller so you can see. There are two other covenants that have the same words in blue. And we're talking about the keshet, we're talking about the rainbow, and there it's written Makim et briti itchem, and the word ot, and afterwards there's another covenant which carries on to Am Yisrael, which is Shabbat. Okay? So three covenants have signs. We've got the circumcision. Elaine and women don't need circumcision. I have to say in brackets, but it's a whole topic that I can expand, and I'll just say it in 2 sentences, not in 3, but in 2 sentences. Who's more righteous, men or women?
Women.
Women. Of course, I meant women because they usually don't sin. I always give the example. You didn't know that, Elaine? You didn't know that?
No.
Tell me, how many Okay, I'm just going to... It's a new one. My wife loves, she should hear this lesson because she loves me to say that. How many jails are in all the world? It doesn't matter if it's communist, it doesn't matter if it's Republican, Democrat, or it's all kinds of different nations. It doesn't matter where you're in the world. How many jails are there for men? How many jails are for women? I've checked it. It's 15 times more of jails for men than women. In all the world, it doesn't matter if you're in China, it doesn't matter if you're in Zimbabwe. Wherever you are, there are 15 times more jails for men than women. So who's more righteous? I think I've given the answer. By the way,
violent.
Well, what? They're less violent and so on and so on and so on. Okay, I can give a whole lecture about that. I'm just saying also in the sins of the midbar, in the wilderness, also the sin of the calf and also the sin of the spies. Who didn't sin? The women didn't sin. So that's why I always say, if you can look at my arm, who do we have to tie with tefillin? Who do we have to tie? The men we have to restrict and tie. Who doesn't need restrictions? Women. That means they don't need tefillin, they don't need circumcision, and there's many other things that they don't need. Okay, so I've summarized that topic. I think Elaine can be happy. So we're not talking about circumcision for women. We're talking about men that have to be really tied up, and we all know why. Men and women know why. But anyhow.
Okay, let me ask you a question.
Yes.
Okay, here, a general question. If you were speaking to a class of people who, don't really, let's say they're not religious or maybe they're not Jewish, what would you explain as the reason for circumcision as the sign of the covenant and not a nose ring?
And not a nose ring. Okay. I said it already.
What would you say?
I said it a few sentences before, if you remember a few minutes ago. The whole book of Bereshit shows why Am Yisrael were chosen and who was kicked out of Am Yisrael. The ones who don't keep the circumcision, which means, in other words, it's not only cutting a small piece of flesh, it means keeping and marrying and having the right women and the right children. That means keeping the right Beit Yehudi. I'm not talking about politics. And I'm really not talking about politics. Beit Yehudi is politics. Victor, I'm not talking about politics.
No, not politics at all. If I'm allowed to give a different explanation.
Yes, you can give it now. Yeah, oh, go, shall go. I'm waiting for you to react.
An ought, a sign,
Yes.
needs to have a purpose. It's similar to the tzitzit in a sense. When do you need a tzitzit undergarment? When you take your clothes off. The same here. The sexual drive is so
It's so
strong.
immense, so strong, right? So strong, yes.
Among men, obviously, but nowadays maybe women are
No,
welcome.
no, more than
But,
men. Okay, we'll keep it with men. Okay.
But the point is that this is where a lot of sins happen, and that comes to remind you every time you take your clothes.
Definitely, definitely. You've said exactly. El Hanatzeach Lashminit Mizmor. It's a Perek Tet in Tehillim. I won't go into that. You've said what Chazal said. That you're amazingly right. So I said there's no one explanation, but I think one of the main explanations in the book of Genesis is it's not only using that ligament. It means marrying the right people and being a proper people with the right wives, with the right children, and that's why who doesn't ever keep that in family or keep those restrictions as kicked out. We've got enormous amount of proof through the whole Tanakh and through the whole history, but also your explanation is definitely a right explanation. So let me just carry on and say that here you can see this is a ought, definitely with your explanation that you take off the clothes, and I always know who's Jewish and who's not Jewish, even with clothes, without clothes, and also Shabbat is the ought, and also another sign is, of course, the keshet for the whole world that Hashem wants us to keep. And by the way, in the keshet, just before the keshet, if you look at what I've written here, I skipped all the 7 mitzvot b'nei Noach. But actually, between Pasuk, the first verse, Vayivarach Elohim, God blessed Noach, and then there's 7 other verses, or 6 other verses, then it's written the sign of the rainbow. But what's in the middle that I skipped? I didn't want to write it all. The 7 commands that all mankind keeps. So part of keeping, to be a mankind and not to be a slaughter, not to be a terrible wild animal, is to look at the keshet. So all mankind should see the thing. So that's interesting of itself. Okay, let me go to the 3rd page. I'll go to the 3rd page. Just 1 second. It still takes me time to fiddle around with this thing. Okay, we're getting there, we're getting there, we're getting there. Mm-hmm. No, not yet. That's not the right page. Yes, it is the right page. Can you see this page? Gimel?
It's coming. There it is.
Yeah.
Okay, it's the same chapter. I emphasized other things, and here I want to show you what I'm emphasizing here. Here it's written something interesting that people, I haven't seen commentators talking about it, but I saw in the Midrash, one Midrash I saw it, that here is written something interesting. I said the first half is talking about Abraham and his descendants. The second half is talking about Yitzchak and descendants, which is actually canceling Ishmael. Ishmael can do circumcision, but he's not Jewish. And here I want to show you a main proof. Okay, I've showed all kinds of other things. Here it's written Zachar, 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 which of course means male and not females and so on. But here I've emphasized at the bottom of the page. Can you see here? Vayamol et basar orlatam. And God and Abraham did what Hashem told him. בעצם היום הזה, כאשר דיבר אלוהים איתו. Okay? So he circumcised all the families and everybody like God said to him. Interesting. I said diber is God told him. That means he didn't have to do it, but he did it. That means let's look at verse 23. Vaikach Avraham et Ishmael. He definitely also took Ishmael, Bno, vet kol yelidei beto, and all the servants that were together in his household, vet kol miknat kaspo, whoever he bought as servants, and all the, I don't know, Philippines and the Sri Lankans, all kinds of people that were gathered together with him in his household, they all went to his house. So kasher diber eto Elohim, like God said to him, you should keep, so he circumcised everybody. But have a look what happened in chapter 21, which is next week's parasha. There it's written not kasher diber eto Elohim. He didn't talk to Elohim. Here in the Milah, when he circumcised Yitzchak, there's another word written there. Kasher tziva oto Elohim. Tziva is commanded. And I wrote here on the side, the word to talk to it, Hashem talk to him, is one thing, which means you may do it, you may not do it. God said to him, if you want to keep everybody happy or you want to be part, they all be a part of your people, so circumcise everybody. But who did Hashem order to do it? On Yitzchak. Yitzchak. Kasher tziva oto Elokim. I haven't seen anybody sing that, but Ishmael was circumcised because Hashem told him, you want to circumcise or not. But here he commanded him. So that's the big difference between Yitzchak and Ishmael. Yitzchak is commanded and he has to be done by God. By the way, the two things that Judaism is kept through the whole last 4,000 years since then. I would say 95%. I wish it would be 100%. But Jews usually keep 95% of the Jews keep two things of Judaism. One thing is circumcision. Okay, many Jews don't know that they're Jews, so that's why they don't do circumcision. But immediately when they feel that they're Jewish, they usually ask the doctor, please do anesthetic and do circumcision. What's the second thing? It's the beginning of the life and the end of life. Most Jews, here is not 95%, here is much less perhaps, is let's say 80%, 75%, people are buried like Jews. People ask to be buried like Jews and ask somebody to say Kaddish. Okay, there's of course a minority, but most of the Jews want to be buried in a Jewish burial place. So I'm saying there are two things that really show Judaism more than anything else, not the mitzvot, not Pesach, not Tefillin, but it's usually circumcision and usually burial. The beginning of life and the end of life, which summarizes a Jewish life. And that's interesting that until I've seen all kinds of statistics about that, Jews that know they are Jewish usually want to be buried as Jews. Okay, you've got all kinds of funny other Jews that have changed things, but I think that is an amazing thing. And until today, after 4,000 years, it's kept. So that's what I want to talk about this parasha. If anybody wants to say anything, please shoot.
I'm
Elaine.
curious.
Yes.
In Israel, is there a choice of cremation in Israel?
There is possibility of cremation. You know, Rona Ramon, the wife of the amazing pilot that went up to the thing. She lost her husband when he was with the Apollo 16. What Apollo was it? The rocket. Her son, 2 years later, which was a pilot, amazing pilot, lost and was killed. After all that, she didn't want to be buried. I don't know why. She didn't want them to visit, and she asked to be cremated. So there is a possibility, but most, I'm talking about really. So she's I'm giving as an example, but I'm not all condemning her. I'm not condemning her. I understand what her reasons was. I even think that she did a mistake, but I sort of understand her. But there are Jews that don't want to be buried. But again, I'm talking about in Israel, 95%, 97% of the thing. Yes, you have a possibility of being cremated, but that usually doesn't happen. Okay, but I'm saying that's amazing. Nearly all the Jews have circumcision, nearly all the Jews. And just 2 weeks ago, I read in the newspaper, not in the newspaper, in the internet, that 85-year-old Jew, he was Russian. He found out that he did Aliyah. He asked to do Brit Milah, circumcision. 85 years old. They said it's dangerous. The rabbis will allow you not to do it. No, I want to be Jewish. I hope he'll live until 220, not 220, but even an 85-year-old, only 2 weeks ago, asked to have circumcision. So that's a normal Jewish request, to have circumcision and to be part of the burial of Jewish life. So I'm saying this is amazing, and it goes through the whole Bereshit. We'll carry on, we'll see in other parashot that it's more than only a circumcision. It means to be part of the Jewish, of the definitely the sign of Jewish life. Okay, so that's for today. If it's possible, Sunday, we can carry on. If you don't mind, in the morning, Sunday, it doesn't ruin your Sunday. Okay, so I'm ready.
Yeah, but Amihud, are you going to be ready at 7 p.m. your time?
I'll be 7 p.m. Let's make it 10 past 7 if you don't mind. 10 past 7 after my rave, okay? If it's possible,
Okay, very good.
10 past 7. Let's make it. Victor's all right. 10 past 9 for your time. They're bringing back the clock next week. So on Sunday, Motzei Shabbat, you'll have another hour to sleep. So good, have a good sleep.
Send the link again.
Before
I'll send the link.
Somehow I lost it.
I'll send it to you. The sender. Avi, will you send the link? It's the same number, the same sending the link. If not, I'll send it. Lehitrot, call to.
Avi.
Yes, Victor, yes.
רציתי לשאול, I wanted to ask something, but maybe also to suggest something. We spoke a little bit about El Shaddai.
Yes.
And I usually don't differ from Rambam with anything, usually.
Okay, go. What the Rambam says, I don't remember what the Rambam says.
Okay, Avraham says about El Shaddai, El Shaddaibo.
Shaddaibo, that's what I said. You are satisfied with him, yes.
Supposedly that's the concept of Avraham, Lishma, pure. So it means that our vote knew Lishma, whatever it is. El Shaddaibo, I don't need to know, whatever. Somehow I have a completely opposite feeling here. Shaddai is from the word Shad in Hebrew, that is your chest, you're close to your heart. So my feeling of El Shaddai in the previous was coming from the heart. Something, they were connected internally to God, while over the time, definitely for Moshe Rabbeinu, it's becoming something more of the philosophical God, etc.
I don't remember. I've seen one of the commentators saying that. I've seen one of the Parshanim say that.
Really?
It's written that Shaddai means Inyan Shel Shad, and it's the heart, and people have said that. I think even I read it in the Zohar.
Tell me who is it? Because
okay, I'll try and find it.
We have a saying, Baruch
Kivanta, definitely. Victor, you are Talmid Chacham. You've been learning for years. Of course, you know, and you just don't remember from where.
But I never read it. And some people that I said didn't accept it. So there
is commentators that talk about it. I'll try and find it. I think I've even seen it in the Zohar. I'll try and find it. So you're becoming Kabbalik, not Rambamik, but
you're a Kabbalist.
Kabbalist. Sein gesund, Lehitrot. Have a good
Shabbat
Shabbat. Lehitrot.